Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to try and help you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. And last time we were talking about defining and measuring creativity, and we're going to take up on that again. Creative thinking may require different abilities from those needed to do exceptionally well in school, because remember we were saying that you can be creative, artistically, physically. It does not have to be scholastically. Creativity seems to involve a greater role for emotions and attitudes, offbeat methods, and unconscious thought processes leading to sudden moments of illumination. And I think we've all had that, where suddenly, aha, you have that aha moment. I was in that movie, but anyway, usually after long periods of slow, deliberate effort. So sometimes, we're trying, and then we give up almost, and then suddenly something comes to us. So, it's, things like that can be measured as creativity, creative thinking. Much as intelligence tests attempt to measure abilities that predict success in school, psychometric tests of creativity attempt to measure abilities that predict creative productivity. And schools do that so they can put children in advanced or, creative programs. A lot of children go to Montessori school where, that's something that's recommended for more creative people. If I'd had the money, my kids would have went there. Convergent thinking, the kind of tests measure, seeks a single correct answer. Divergent thinking comes up with a wide array of fresh possibilities. Tests of creativity call for divergent thinking. The Torrance test of creative thinking, among the most widely known tests of creativity, includes such tasks as listing unusual uses for a paperclip, completing a figure, and writing down what a sound brings to mind. Fostering creativity. The following attributes and values in a child's home and school environment may encourage creative expression. And again, remember, the home environment is important. School is important, but the home environment is the number one place where you start out, so it's the most important environment in a person's life. Intrinsic motivation. Pursue an activity for its own sake, not to please others or reap rewards, such as fame or money. Choice. Having the opportunity to choose a task to perform and then to select a way of doing it. Now, I've talked about that before, how as long as it gets done, I don't care how you do it, it just needs to get done. Stimulation. Having experiences that are cognitively and perceptually stimulating. Inspirational models. Coming into contact with creative people who serve as an example or mentors. And I had one son who went and, was taking a workshop on how to juggle. And, he didn't end up staying with that, but it's something that, he could have done. I can't do that. So, he needed a mentor. So we sent him to a workshop on learning how to juggle. And I had another son who kind of liked sports, but he wasn't really, that physically well adapted to sports. And so one of the coaches at school kind of took a little bit of interest in him and played a little ball with him and stuff. He didn't end up going into sports for very long. He was in there for about a year. But, that was a mentor to him, someone to help him, feel like he could do this if he wanted to do this. And those are important for our kids. Freedom from evaluation. Performing a task without fear of being judged foolish or inadequate. I never had that luxury. Independence. Performing a task without a sense of being observed by others in a critical way. Never had that one. So, I had some of these growing up and not a few. But these are things, that will help your children in being creative. If you had a creative child, don't crush their dreams. Encourage their dreams. Help them live out their dreams. Because it can be done, but it won't be done if you tell them they can't do it. Because then that's going to always be in the back of their mind, because your parents are the most impactful people in your life. The mother and father are going to impact everything that happens for the rest of your life. Sometimes that's a shame, but it's a fact. Follow-up studies after intervals ranging from 7 to 22 years found that the tests had successfully predicted which youngsters would become creative achievers. So someone followed someone for 22 years in these tests to find out if they were going to be creative achievers. And, it happens every day. So like I said, help your child if they're into creative endeavors, help them succeed, support them. Whenever I'm on there and somebody shares something, their book, their art, their, performance or whatever, I'll share it for them because I feel like we all need to succeed and we all need to help each other get out there. Because I know it's hard. So, if somebody shares something with me and I see I'm going to share that because I'm going to help them out too. Excuse me. As Guilford recognized, divergent thinking may not be the only or even the most important factor in creative performance. So ability has to come into play too. You can have the thinking for it, but the ability has to be in there too. A powerful argument for special education for the gifted is that the achievement of the most promising U.S. students lags behind that in other technology. Good gosh, don't have a stroke, I'm telling you. Jeez, help me. The performing of U.S. students lags behind oh my gosh, I can't talk today. Let's just start this whole freaking sentence over. A powerful argument for special education for the gifted is that the achievement of the most promising U.S. students lags behind that in other technologically advanced countries. I finally got it out. I'm telling you, man, sometimes it's so frustrating. You know what you want to say, it's there, you can't get it out your mouth. That's so annoying. About half of those in the top 5%, as measured by IQ, are underachievers. So again, there are problems there. Like I said, I was getting C's because I was bored. I knew the work, I already knew this stuff. I didn't care, It's like, why bother? I already know this. I'm bored. Most states have programs for the gifted, with about 6% of public schools and 6% of public school. There's a curve right here, and this is what's messing me up. Public school children participating. But competition for funding and opposition to what some critics consider elitism threatens the continuation of these programs because some educators are not secure in their intelligence. And so, they don't particularly care for, progressing or putting in an advanced placement or moving to a different school, a person who might be more intelligent than them, even at a young age, or is more gifted than them at something, even at a young age. So human prejudices play a part in how these kids are treated too. Oh my goodness. Bless me, Lord. My goodness. Programs for the gifted generally follow one of two approaches: enrichment or acceleration. Enrichment broadens and deepens knowledge and skills through extra classroom activities, research projects, field trips, or coaching by experts. Acceleration, often recommended for highly gifted children, speeds up their education by early school entrance, by grade skipping, by placement in fast-paced classes, or by advanced courses in specific subjects. And like I said, I was, after I had my IQ tested, it was suggested that I take the test to skip a grade, and my parents refused to sign the paper on that because they said, "Oh no, she needs to be with children her own age." But then my sister, when she came along, and they said the same thing about her, she was allowed to go into advanced classes. So, like I said, I felt that was a little unfair. I'm standing back going like, really? You know? So kids notice these things. Like I say, teach your kids fairly. What you do for one, you have to do for them all. Moderate acceleration does not seem to harm school adjustment, at least in the long run. So, again, it's not going to hurt your kid if they accelerate, and if they're smart and they're bored, let them accelerate. Good gosh. Why hold them back with the other kids? I mean, we just talked earlier how bad it is to hold back kids, how it affects them. So why let your gifted child be bored to death in school when they can move forward and learn more and become more, Children in gifted programs are not only make academic gains, but also tend to improve in self-concept and social adjustment. So it doesn't hurt them to move forward. It actually helps them figure out who they are and adjust socially. So, let the gifted kid get accelerated. That's just common sense there. They've done studies on it, so, Some educators advocate moving away from an all-or-nothing definition of giftedness and including a wider range of students in more flexible programs. Because, like they said, some students gifted in creativity are not necessarily gifted scholastically, and vice versa. So, there has to be an adaptation to where the child needs help, and time where the child can be allowed to excel at the things they excel at. There is no firm dividing line between being gifted and not being gifted, creative and not creative. All children benefit from being encouraged in their areas of interest and ability. Like I said, what your kid is good at is what they're going to be interested in because they're good at it, and that's where they're going to excel. So if you're trying to push them another way, this way, whatever, they're going to be unhappy and they're not going to be fulfilled, and they're not going to do well because that's not what they're interested in. That's where you're pushing them. So, take a cue from the kids. Just like when they're little, they start giving you cues about, I'm hungry, I need my diaper changed, take the cues that they're showing you. I like this subject, I don't like this so much, but, you might need to do it, so you have to work at it a little bit, but I like this and I excel at this, and, kind of help them go that way, because there's nothing worse than a person who could not live up to their potential because they did not have a support system to help them do so. That usually ends up sad. So, encourage your kids and let them do what they feel compelled to do. That's the best thing you can do for them, honestly. What we learn about fostering intelligence and creativity in the most able youngsters may help all children make the most of their potential, and it will. The degree to which they do this will affect their self-concept and other aspects of their personality, as we will see when we talk some more about stuff later on. Let's see, we're going to skip past that stuff. It's not really relative to what we're learning here, so it's just a little outtake. Marian Anderson-Operatic Trailblazer. The African-American contralto Marian Anderson, who lived from 1902 to 1993, had, in the words of the great Italian conductor Arturo Toscanini, a voice heard once in 100 years. She was also a pioneer in breaking racial barriers. Turned away by a music school in her hometown of Philadelphia, she studied voice privately and in 1925 won a national competition to sing with the New York Philharmonic. So see, back in that day, African Americans, much less an African American woman, were not sought after for their operatic voices. When she was refused the use of a concert hall in Washington, D.C., First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt arranged for her to sing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. So the First Lady of the United States recognized that there was a problem there and set up a concert for her. Good on you, Eleanor. The unprecedented performance on Easter Sunday, 1939, drew 75,000 people and was broadcast to millions. Several weeks later, Marian Anderson was the first black singer to perform at the White House. But not until 1955 did Anderson, at age 57, become the first African American to sing with New York's Metropolitan Opera. A remarkable story lies behind this woman's journey from a single rented room in South Philadelphia. It is a story of nurturing family ties, bonds of mutual support, care, and concern that extended from generation to generation. And sometimes that's where people get lucky. They come from good families. From generation to generation, they're supported and valued. And if you have that, you are lucky. Because a lot of us were not so lucky. Marian Anderson was the eldest of 3 children of John and Annie Anderson. 2 years after her birth, the family left their one-room apartment to move in with her father's parents and then into a series of small rented houses nearby. At the age of 6, Marian joined the junior choir at the Union Baptist Church. At the age, there she made a friend, Viola Johnson. Within a year or two, they performed a duet together, Marian's first public performance. When Marian was 12, her beloved father died, and the family again moved in with his parents. The household included his sister and her 2 daughters, as well, from time to time, various other relatives. Marian became attached to her kind, soft-spoken grandfather, but he too died a year later. Her grandmother took care of all the children, giving them chores and teaching them lessons about sharing and respect for others. And we were taught that. Marian's aunt ran the house, and her mother contributed by cooking dinners, working as a cleaning woman, and taking in laundry, which Marian and her sister Alice delivered. So they were taught the value of work. So you need balance there. You need to allow the child to be creative, and yet also teach them that work is important and hard work is rewarded. So there has to be balance there. You can't have all negative or all positive, because either one of those comes out with a bad deal. Either the child has no self-esteem and no self-worth, or they have too much, then they go out into the world a big bluffing, blundering idiot, and everybody's like, dude. So there has to be a balance there. The most important influence in Marian Anderson's life was the counsel, example, and spiritual guidance of her hardworking, unfailingly supportive mother. Annie Anderson placed great importance on her children's schooling and saw to it that they didn't skimp on homework. Even when she was working full-time, she cooked dinner every night, and she taught Marian to sew her own clothes. When Marian Anderson became a world-renowned concert artist, she often returned to her old neighborhood in Philadelphia. Her mother and sister Alice shared a modest house, and the other sister, Ethel, lived next door with her son. It is the pleasantest thing in the world to go into that home and feel its happiness. the singer wrote. And so, see, you know, for some of us, that's like maybe 1 or 2 homes of people that we might have grown up with, to go in the house and feel happy. So that's a blessing. They are all comfortable, and they cherish and protect one another. And see, we don't all grow up with that. You know, you have, that's a blessing if you've got that. Because sometimes you're not cherished, and sometimes you are not protected. So if you got that, you're blessed. I know that it warms Mother to have her grandson near her as he grows up, just as I think that when he gets to be a man, making his own life, he will have pleasant memories of his home and family. Marian Anderson, widowed, childless, and frail at age 95, went to live with that nephew, James DePriest, then music director at the Oregon Symphony. She died of a stroke at his home the following year. So, see, this is an example, oh my goodness, itchy, of what can happen if you support your child, if you help your child to succeed. They can. It has a lot to do with the mindset that you put into that child. If you put into that child that they can succeed, then it's most likely that they will, because they believe that they can. They have your support. So that's an important thing to remember, folks. Marian Anderson lived through momentous changes in America and the world, and in African American life. But one thing that never changed was the strong, supportive network of relationships that sustained her and her family. And that's important. And that's why I say, you know, families should stick together. Family is important. Excuse me. That's supposed to be the basis for, you know, your base in life. And I've had a family member tell me once, we're your family. We'll always be there for you. And I'm sitting here thinking, and that person has never been there for me. That person has, you know, backbit me, said mean things to me. And it's like, yeah, you just said you would be, but no, you've never been there for me. Because that was the thing that supposedly was touted in my family, is that family's first, family will be there for you. But in the reality of my life, there were friends that were closer to me and nicer to me than my own family. So, you know. Oh my. The kind of household a child lives in and the relationships within the household can have profound effects on psychosocial development in middle childhood. So if the home environment is not right, if the family is not right, the child is not going to be right. That's just a fact. When children are developing a stronger sense of what it means to be responsible, contributing members, first of a family, and then of society. So this is something you have to teach your children. It's not innate. They're not born with it. You have to teach them how to be a good, person, to be, wise, to be loving, to be decent. This is something you have to teach this child. And if you teach them that, they're going to have a lot better time in the world. The family is part of a web of contextual influences, including the peer group, the school, and the neighborhood in which the family lives. Marian Anderson's first friend, her church choir, and the neighbors for whom she did odd jobs all played parts in her development. Above and beyond these influences were the overarching cultural patterns of time and place, which presented special challenges to African American families and communities and called forth mutually supportive responses. And that is what, we're supposed to do, is band together and be there for each other. And that goes across all cultures, not just hers. Self-concept in, my gosh. Children develop a more realistic self-concept and become more self-reliant and in control of their emotions when they're given support. Through being with peers, they make discoveries about their own attitudes, values, and skills. Still, the family remains a vital influence. And as I said, when I was in school, I had a cognizant dissonance going on because I was treated one way at home and treated another way at school. So it was hard for me to live in these two separate worlds where very different things were going on. Children's lives are affected not only by the way parents approach the task of child raising, but also by whether and how they are employed, by the family's economic circumstances, and by the makeup of the household. So again, your attitude is showing, and the children are noticing. So you might as well make it a good one. Although most children are emotionally healthy, some have mental health problems. We look at that in a little bit here. We're also going to look at resilient children who emerge from the stress of childhood healthier and stronger. The cognitive growth that takes place during middle childhood enables children to develop more complex concepts of themselves and to grow in emotional understanding and control. Because you want your child to understand their own emotions and to be able to control their own emotions. That has gone out of style here lately when we had a very bad example in a high place. That it was okay to become an emotional wreck and jerk to everyone and spill your emotions out on everyone else. And that was a terrible example for people because now all the emotionally unstable people have crawled out of the woodwork and are spilling their emotions out on everybody else. And the rest of us are like, no, we don't care for this. Please stop. So judgments about the self become more realistic, more balanced, more comprehensive, and more consciously expressed in middle childhood. Around age 7 or 8, children reach the third of the non-Piagetian stages of self-concept development. Okay, children now have the cognitive ability to form representational systems, broad, inclusive self-concepts that integrate different aspects of the self. You have a lot of different aspects of yourself. There's not just one thing about you. There's lots of different things about you. And at this age, they're learning what parts of them are. That they like this, but they don't like that. And they like to do this, but they don't like to do that. And they're developing their own self-concept. And that is important. You need that in order to be a mentally healthy person. At school, I'm feeling pretty smart in certain subjects. Language arts and social studies, says 8-year-old Lisa. I got A's in these subjects on my last report card and was really proud of myself. But I'm feeling really dumb in math and science, particularly when I see how well the other kids are doing. I still like myself as a person because math and science just aren't that important to me. How I look and how popular I am are more important. And that's what kids think. We know it. We were back there and we understand it. But when our kids do it, we're like, oh no, don't you care, and all this stuff. And it's still good to tell them that. But those are the facts. Lisa's self-description shows that she can focus on more than one dimension of herself. She has outgrown an all or nothing, black or white, self-definition. She recognizes that she can be smart in certain subjects and dumb in others. Her self-descriptions are more balanced. She can verbalize her self-concept better, and she can weigh different aspects of it, such as how I look and how popular I am are more important. She can compare her real self with her ideal self and can judge how well she measures up to social standards in comparisons with others. Your real self is who you are right now. Your ideal self is who you want to be as a person. All these changes contribute to the development of self-esteem, her assessment of her global worth. As she said, I like myself as a person. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. And hopefully that has helped you to figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Until next time.